The desire to be in Glasgow became too strong to resist, so my East Coast reward points were exchanged for a Glasgow return ticket. East Coast trains were nationalised in 2009 when National Express refused to financially support their National Express East Coast subsidy and lost the franchise. East Coast Trains returned a healthy £208 million profit to the taxpayer last year, so of course the Tory scum wish to privatise it again, allowing their mates to stick their snouts in the trough once more. Tickets booked, I immediately contacted the King of Glasgow for recommendations on where to shoot some photos, and he immediately ignored me. He's a most unreliable king. I kept pestering him, and he eventually sent a list of suggestions, many with snippets of information. Some of those snippets I used in this video and are read by the king himself. Day 1. Charing Cross Mansions were the first suggestion. The mansions are a French Renaissance style monstrosity. Goodness knows why the Kaiser likes them. I worry about that boy sometimes. Lee said, soonest mended, so let's trot up Woodlands Road to the Lobey sculpture, briefly detouring to take in Sean Taylor's Woodland Men on Ashley Street.
The Lobey statue in Woodlands Road, one of the first ever statues of a cartoon character. It's cared for by the regulars at the Halt Bar, one of the surviving real bars in Glasgow.
The Halt Bar was shut when I went, so I can't verify the Emperor's claim. Continued up Woodlands Road to Kelvingrove subway station, where the Sovereign claimed wonderful architecture abounds. By wonderful architecture, he meant steps. Here are a few pics so you can judge for yourself. Next stop was Caledonian Mansions on Great Western Road. The mansions were designed in 1895 by James Miller. He probably designed them with his eyes closed because they're not particularly pleasant. I was close to throwing the Caliph's list in the dustbin and heading off to marvel at the elegantly neglected tenements on Paisley Road West, but proceeded to Alexander Greek Thompson's 60 Steps, His Highness's next suggestion. I take it all back. His Magnificence is a star, not due to the 60 Steps, but the route to them. I've neither traversed nor heard of the Kelvin Walkway before, but it's a joy. I can't bear nature and try to avoid it if possible, with the exception of rivers and seas. Discovering the walkway and following it along the river from Kelvingrove subway to the 60 Steps made me want to embrace the Tsar in a manly, effeminate way. The walkway was what I'd hoped for with this project, stumbling upon parts of Glasgow I'd not seen before. I could spend all day wandering along the Kelvin walkway. Back to the 60 Steps. They were designed in the 1870s by Alexander Thompson to access the original Queen Margaret Bridge. This bridge across the River Kelvin has long been demolished. I read somewhere that steps were used rather than a slope to stop carts using this route. While at the top of the steps on Kelvinside Terrace South, I took this shot across the river to Hamilton Drive. The 60 Steps were where the day's wandering ended, and I made my way back into town via Mary Hill Road, a joy I could have done without discovering. Day 2. The old Sheriff Court on Wilson Street was today's first stop, but Greek columns do nothing for me, so I headed off to Candleriggs. The Shah knows of my liking for urban decay, but I was too late. Decay had turned into demolition. That evening, in the Pot Still pub on Hope Street, I discussed the demolition site with 3 wonderfully friendly and helpful gents. They told how a large area of the site was taken up by Goldberg's department store. That shut in the early 90s. It was briefly a discount clothes store after that, but it closed in the late 90s. They said Selfridges bought the site and a store had been planned, but it's now going to be a car park. How disappointing. All 3 gents were voting yes for Scottish independence and thought it would be gained, but the last month before the vote, when the media unveiled their agendas with force, would sway the vote one way or the other. From Candleriggs, I ambled down to the Italian Cloister garden in the grounds of St Andrew's Cathedral, but it was shut. So I shot this picture through the gate and headed west to Custom House, the Crowned Head's next point of interest.
The old Custom House building in Clyde Street, just along from St Andrew's Cathedral.
Custom House is a pleasant piece of architecture, but the building next to it, 266 to 268 Clyde Street, is my favourite example of urban decay in central Glasgow. Built in the mid to late 19th century, this blonde sandstone building is Category B listed. A top floor fire in early 2013 seems to have sealed this building's fate, unfortunately. I was desperate to gain access and asked Caesar to make some inquiries, but he told me to ring the letting agent and sort it out for myself. He's a lazy king sometimes. Cross Glasgow Bridge to the Georgian terraced mansions of Carlton Place.
Any part of Carlton Place, including of course Suspension Bridge.
Carlton Place was teeming with police. Hardly surprising, as number 1 Carlton Place is the Sheriff Court, reputedly the busiest court in Europe. I view the police as a criminal gang, so pausing only to take this shot across the Clyde, I made for the exits. Well, Paisley Road West. Paisley Road West was not on the Sultan's list, but traversing its length is a Glasgow ritual for me. Its gritty, real, careworn beauty holds huge appeal. Furniture Went Mad suggested taking a closer look at the Angel at Paisley Road Toll. The surrounding sandstone tenements have my heart though. The Angel is too elaborate. Furniture Went Mad is voting yes for Scottish independence, and at this point I better add that so is the King of Glasgow, or he'll never talk to me again. Here are a few pictures on or just off Paisley Road West. From Ibrox, it was off to Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum, on the way passing the fire-damaged Glasgow Steiner School, formerly Over Newton School, on Lumsden Street. Apparently, the exterior structure is sound, and there's talk of rebuilding rather than demolition. Kelvingrove is a must-visit, and I'll repeat what I tweeted while there. Kelvingrove is like a private club, in which you feel cosseted, warm and carefree. It resembles Tate Britain, only more intimate. I adore it. Back on the potentates list, he wrote,
Any building at Partick Cross.
And he was right. What a lovely intersection of architecture. stepped from Partick to the Haldane Building on Rose Street, passing the beautiful Franklin Terrace situated on Argyle Street. I found the Haldane Building uninteresting, but His Majesty also wrote,
While you're up there, take a look to the west side of Cambridge Street, an eclectic bunch of buildings from tenements to 60s concrete.
I of course forgot to heed this advice and didn't take a look. Most vexing. The vexed feeling instantly vanished upon sighting South Block. Ooh, I like this. Very Manchester and dark satanic mills. Here's what the omnipotent one has to say about South Block.
There's an interesting building restored and run by some quasi-public third-way arts group. There's an interesting doorway at 48 King Street next to a very expensive hairdresser. If you're down there, the 13th note is great for an admittedly vegetarian meal. Also of interest might be the record shop inside Morrow Bar at the courtyard off King Street, which features an eclectic mix of tunes that would delight any intellectual snob, and especially one with a bad haircut.
Huh. The bad haircut comment was a sly dig at me. He's a very rude king. In 2013, South Block won the Best Building in Scotland award. The award is misleading, because it was for the regeneration of the building rather than the original building. Anyway, Scotland's best buildings are the tenements on Paisley Road West.
Try and photograph the Mercat Building in Glasgow Cross around dusk, as it's got some lighting Fritz Lang would be pleased with.
Dusk? The man's a fool. Everyone knows fine upstanding pillars of the community are in the pub by dusk, not poncing about taking photographs. Appalled at my apathy towards the Mercat Building at dusk, the King took these 2 photos. I have to concur. It's worth postponing your first martini of the day to experience the Mercat lighting. I was looking forward to reacquainting myself with the penultimate destination, some proper urban decay, the old police stables on Bell Street. I'd love to look round these stables. Pointless asking the Mahdi Maharaja for help though.
There's also that great old police stables in Bell Street, now completely abandoned and in a desolate state. Glasgow City Council should issue some compulsory repair orders on its owners. Oh, but wait. The council is the owner of this once magnificent building that's now water damaged, derelict, and has trees growing out of its roof. So they can neglect it until one of their pals senses an economic upturn and shoves in some planning application for another lousy block of flats.
Final destination was the Olympia Building.
The refurbished Olympia Building at Bridgeton Cross, which is a library that includes a BFI station, very nice restoration of a sandstone building, even though it's in Brighton.
Goodness, it's hardly Bear's Den in Bridgeton, is it? All places visited, I was free to attend Goma. I always travel to Goma with hope, but leave with disappointment. And it was no different on this occasion. Oh well,